Hello everyone, my name is Ilekindos and today I'll be doing a review of a light novel named You Simulate Life but You Change Fate Every Time by Walking Alone with Fire. At the beginning, this light novel was extremely interesting, using the idea of war hopping, basically dressing it up as simulation, jumping from a world of magic to a world of sci-fi to a world of martial arts and so on. So every plane or simulation the main character is sent to feels fresh and new, as there are new challenges the main character has to overcome. Each of them comes with their new systems, with their new power structure, a new whole different continent, and everything feels like a fresh new start. This forces the main character to stay on their feet, not allowing them to take shortcuts from the previous simulation, or at least that was the intended purpose. Sadly, the story constantly contradicts itself. On one hand, the story tells you the main character can't go up to the same power level he was in the previous simulation because the worlds don't match. On the other, he keeps saying that he can do everything he achieved before as long as he adapts to the new world rules. This feels inconsistent and probably as a narrative tool to allow the main character to remain the ultimate most powerful diver or simulator in the current war. The major problem I find is that even when the story introduces a new simulation, a new war, with its own power system, its own laws, and its own rules, the main character will always fall back to the same power system he originally started with. I actually found that kinda funny, if not contradicting, as the main character always says the same thing. The phrase that goes along the lines of all streams will eventually end in the same ocean. But at the same time, they keep emphasizing that the system they started with, which was the she system, is always the best one, strongest one, and cannot be surpassed. This makes no sense in narrative, or at least as far as they explain, because in the end, no matter how you want to put it, the mana or ether or whatever power system the current world is using is a river of the same ocean, or he so said. So it makes no sense that it's suddenly like not as good as the others, or is not as superior as one specific one, and this one being she. The novel does this constantly. It keeps saying that all power systems will eventually land in the same place, but will immediately turn around and say that she is nobler or mightier than mana or elements or ether or any other of the systems, like mechanic systems or sci-fi systems. Because of this, as a reader, you always feel that the main character is always pushed down this narrow path where he has to fit the specific mold, or he's not allowed to progress or change in any way. This may just be a culture thing, as for example, I wouldn't know much about the she system myself, although I read about it. I'm not really like 100% sure about it. But things such as like the ether or mana system, I mostly know about that. Not too many games having those things, so maybe that's the reason, or it could be more unspeakable reasons. That being said, let's move on to the two stages of the novel, those being the real war or the simulation. In the real war, he is basically weak and shown not to be able to do much at the beginning. Whenever he gets into trouble, which happens often, probably due to narrative reasons to push the story along, he has to escape the simulation war to grow stronger quickly. This creates a strange imbalance. He can become incredibly powerful inside the simulation, but once he reaches the outside war or the real war, he barely gains any power, at least not equivalent to the power he gained inside the simulation. The novel tries to explain this in a way that seems to fit, but it's full of holes that, at least for us the reader, feels kinda awful, by saying that the real war is a complete, or at least almost complete, war with loss, and it's not a lower round with incomplete loss like the simulation war. If the real war is like level 9999, The simulation wars, or at least the earlier ones, are like level 20th. Once the main character reaches said level 20th, he is powerful enough to basically destroy that simulation. He is strong enough to destroy the war, maybe even the cosmos, or reality, the space-time, everything. But once he returns to the main war, as previously said, the war being level 9999, a level 20 person can only really destroy a mountain or a few, more or less. This makes the main character feel weak and not grow as quickly as he supposedly has. It mainly affects us, the reader, as we can see the main character doing amazing, overly dramatic, and quite fun to read things, but yet when it reaches the main war, it turns into little more than a bleep, if anything, and it tries to explain this in such a way that the kings or the rulers of the main war are so powerful that the main character just looks down at most of the people from the simulation war. Even if it's not meant and he still takes them seriously, he still has this inherent looking down upon them, saying that they think they're so mighty and strong, but in reality they're just lowly peasants, or well, not like that, but they're just lowly people compared to the actual big shots or the real war. In the end, it just makes the real war more important than the simulations, yet the main character gets honestly overpowered achievements and skills on the virtual war or the simulation, and gains very little in reality. As a reader, we know that the main character cannot really truly die, because the story in the end has to continue. When a simulation threatens the main character's life, it doesn't feel meaningful, because no matter what, he can always somehow overcome it or exit the simulation. So to fix this, we have to look at what actually matters, what he could lose, that being companions, resources, or any progress to the main objective or the main character. But the story rarely treats these losses as important. Most of the time, when he leaves something behind in the simulation, he forgets about them or doesn't really care much. Later in the story, he does leave behind more important things to him, at least grammatically, yet he doesn't actually show much actual attachment to it. But it doesn't feel, at least for us the reader, as it matters, as only the thing that he actually has in his grasp are important to us. Ironically, this thing that he can lose the most on is the real world. He builds his foundation and his own city in the real world, and that's where most of his interest should be going towards to. Yet the story doesn't seem to treat it the same way. It is simply treated as a stepping stone for the main character to use to move on to the next simulation. Almost everything important happens in the simulations, while the real apocalypse behind the scenes just feels like background noise that is barely only remember when the main story needs to be moved on. As of making this review, the novel is not quite finished yet, so this could change. They could finally make the main war more important and move on from just having the bulk of the importance on the simulation. After all, the simulations are simulations. And even if they are part of the main war in some way, they don't affect the main character as much, because we know that the main character cannot die or have any meaningful loss on the simulations. Only in the real world can he lose something and permanently lose it and not get it back in any obscure way. Lastly, and this is the part where I'm gonna be doing spoilers mainly, is the powers the main character gets. The first few powers he gets are fine and there's not much to talk about. I basically think of them as the main war as being a complete war with most of the loss almost complete, can forcefully bend and twist the holes and inconsistencies in the lower rounds, since they have much less finished laws, and the world can bend and twist them to his will without actually breaking them. However, this completely breaks once you get to the fourth skill the main character gets. This skill is named Reverse Cause and Effect. From the website I'm reading this novel, it has ended right about the time where the main character was about to return to the main war, with this power returning with him. Once this power returns to the main war, unless it's heavily changed, it would not really make much sense. Like I said before, since the main war is a higher war with finished laws and all that, it kind of makes sense that they can somehow bend and twist the lower rounds to fit the main character's powers. And although it's also tried to explain or brush stuff as the main character's power being far stronger than even the main war's will, it doesn't work well as a narrative. The way that I chose to rationalize these powers were the uncertainty principle. In this way, the loss of the lower rounds can be moved and shifted into whatever the main character needs through his own power. Because of the uncertainty principle and the loss not being complete, all the incomplete loss can be made to bend to the main character's will, allowing him to have great powers. But once he is moved to the main war, where all the laws, or at least most of them, are complete, the main character should not be able to use the uncertainty principle to bend the very laws of cause and effect. It makes no sense narratively, or at least rationally. Then again, this is a book and can be changed in many ways, but this is just how I see it. And once the book continues and moves on from this chapter, I may not be able to continue reading because the logic will just be too much of a problem for me. Sometimes you can turn off your brain and read the book and enjoy it as it is, but for me, it has to be at least a little, just a tiny bit of possibility, and it makes no sense to me sometimes. With all that being said, there's my review of the novel Let You Simulate Life and You Change Fate Every Time. I hope you enjoyed my review, and I tried my best to give you my honest opinion and structure it the best I can. If you think I said something wrong, it is fine. We all have our own opinions, and many a times what I find interesting might be disgustingly boring to many people. Like I said, this novel is really good, but the problem is that it reaches the point where, at least the fourth skill, that the logic I cannot logic. The logic just cannot logic. It's fine if they leave some open-endedness so you can rationalize in your head, but since it leaves none and I haven't seen the skill returning to the original war yet, I can't give my last thoughts. Hopefully once it gets updated again, it will try to fix itself and maybe the main war will finally become important, as it's supposed to be the most important thing, as where the goal of the main character is, as well as the only meaningful place where he will lose something for real. As a simulation in the end, no matter how much the author tries to make it important, it really isn't. And even when he gets important things like having certain things which I don't want to say for spoilers, he still doesn't treat them as really important, and many a times he forgets or the novel doesn't bring them up more than just once or twice. Anyway, I'm thankful to anybody who saw this, and see you next time. Ciao!